Hello, it's Yumina again, and today I wanted to do a brief video on how I, as a foodie, became interested in a certain channel who is an eating disorder recovery coach. She's actually based in Australia, but my story is that I grew up with 4 siblings, and I'm the oldest with my mom, and we grew up trying to make sure we had all the food we can get. So my mom worked full time, and she of course worked out of the house, and she provided food for us grocery shopping. But feeding 6 people of course is going to take a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort. She taught us how to cook as well. She also encouraged us to take advantage of the summertime programs at the schools that were around. They would offer free breakfast and lunch for our families in the community, and she would encourage us to take advantage of those programs. And she would also get different little foods from the food pantries that were around Brooklyn. So we took advantage of that. So there were different ways for us to get food. I was always preoccupied with eating and eating well as often as I could, but also just making sure I ate, making sure my siblings ate when they were with me. And being a foodie also included when I was a teenager living in New York City. I would also go out with my friends on the weekends, and we would go eat at restaurants that we thought were worthy that had good food. And so I enjoyed doing that as well. And I would say when I was about 10 to 12 years old is when I came to find out about eating disorders, bulimia and anorexia in particular, but there turns out there's many kinds. And at that time, at that age, I thought it was mostly physical, and that for whatever reason, these particular people didn't want to eat. And I found out later that it was also a mental aspect of it. We know it's a mental illness now, but I came to realize that there was a mental aspect to it as well. When I was a teenager, I actually met 2 people who declared themselves to have eating disorders, and one of the teenagers actually announced that in a group of teenagers and one adult. So hopefully she was able to get help with that, because I felt completely helpless when I was told that. I just knew the things that I wasn't supposed to say, but I didn't know what I could say to be of some kind of help to her. We were just acquaintances, we weren't friends. But yeah, so I hope she was able to get help with that. So yeah, growing up, I was a foodie and didn't know it, and I was preoccupied with thoughts of getting food and having food, but at the same time, it wasn't an obsession for me. And another thing that I remember is one of the things I learned about some eating disorders is that some of them were preoccupied with numbers, which included their weight and the calorie intake of foods that they would eat. So I never knew anything. I still don't know anything about calories. Like, I don't care. And knowing my weight, like back when I was a child, knowing my weight was fun because I had 4 siblings, and sometimes having a scale around, we would like check our weight just for fun. And that was just something we could do amongst ourselves. But most of the time we didn't have a scale, and even if we did, like, I made sure I didn't like weigh myself any kind of excessive time, because that would have just been weird, and I didn't want to go into the mindset of what I thought people with anorexia or bulimia were in. So I made sure, like, I didn't get a preoccupation with scales and weighing myself. And most of the time I only knew my weight every time I went to the doctor, and that wasn't super often. But I still don't own scales to this day. I only know how much I weigh based on going to the doctor in 2016. So that's what my state ID says. But yeah, so I don't know my weight due to that. So what I wanted to say too, based on the theme of my video title, I started using YouTube probably in the early 2000s, but I didn't actually sign up to YouTube to an account until I guess 2015, it turns out. But I really started scrolling through YouTube more in 2014, 2015, when I moved into a congregation that was heavily using tablets to stay on top of our Bible studies. So I was more acquainted. I had more access to YouTube at that time instead of having to go to the library to look up YouTube stuff. So I started randomly finding channels that I was interested in following and being acquainted with. And one day, I don't know how, I ended up finding a channel which is called What Mia Did Next. And that's the nickname of the channel owner, the channel creator. I forget what her real name is, but she doesn't use her proper name all the time. She uses her nickname of her proper name, and that's how she prefers to be called. But I found Mia. She was in her recovery. She's been in recovery for about 6 or 7 years now, and I found her like a few years into her recovery, and I was so impressed with what she spoke about, how she was encouraging people to not stay stuck in the mindset of having their eating disorder. She wasn't a coach at the time, but she was trying to be encouraging to people, trying to help them to find a place comfortable within themselves to be able to seek help to recover, to recognize signs, to recognize different signs in other people when it came to problematic speech about food or about recovery or about the condition they were currently in. There could be problematic speech that was surrounding those issues as well, and she spoke about that so well that I just really fell in love with her channel, and I was so happy that she was in recovery. And because I found her, I started finding other people that I was like, oh, they're suffering from an eating disorder as well. Let me follow this channel as well. But I came to find out that I did not like the other 2 or 3 people that I started to follow, and I stopped following their channels because I felt like they were still in recovery deeply in a way that they were kind of still suffering from their eating disorder and not fully in recovery in the way that Maya was. I'm not going to sit here and compare them. It's just that I didn't feel comfortable with the trajectory of their kind of recovery, and I was just like, no, I'm not going to watch their channel. And the same thing happened for people that I would find on Instagram. The only eating disorder recovery Instagram account that I follow is What Mia Did Next as well. I was following like about 2 or 3 other ones previously, and they were different from the YouTube channels I had been following, but I felt like one of them was still struggling a lot, and she even posted something one time on her Instagram stories or on her page and then deleted it after like maybe a few of us had asked her what's going on, like basically seeing if we could help her with something. And I stopped following that account because I didn't know how to be of assistance, and I didn't know how to handle someone who was still like floundering in their recovery and like struggling. And then other ones, I just wasn't feeling a connection from them. But with Mia, she's just so encouraging to people who are suffering from eating disorders, who are trying to be in recovery, who are in recovery. And she actually was able to get more schooling so that she could be a certified coach. She's not a licensed counselor. She's an eating disorder recovery coach. And she does it in Australia. She does it partly remotely. I don't know if she ever helps people in the U.S., but she does have a program and a system that is able to be found on her social media account to help people in recovery, and I think especially with an emphasis in Australia. But yeah, I found Mia, and I really, really enjoy her content, really enjoy what she speaks about. She's spoken about many different subjects within the eating disorder recovery world. She's been an advocate for people who she wants to help, but she knows she can't help everyone. And she just talks about things that maybe people in regular media don't always talk about when it comes to body image, when it comes to eating patterns, when it comes to being an encouragement to people who want to recover. She talks about so many different subjects that I think are really interesting, and there are times when I find like some of the vocabulary she uses about food, I've adopted it, but at the same time, food is just good, and I am a dessert person. I am a pasta person. I love Indian food from India, and I just love food in general. And I notice like I definitely have learned my limits to intaking food, because when I was a child and a teenager, I would eat like double plates of Indian food at the restaurant during the buffet. But as I've gotten older, I definitely stick to like 1.5 plates, and then I make sure I have room for dessert. But I'm such a big foodie, and I really enjoy food, and it's something that God gave us to enjoy. So I take it as I can get it, and I enjoy it. But hopefully, if anyone is seeing this and you may be suffering with an eating disorder, hopefully you'll find What Mia Did Next channel, find it encouraging, and you continue on your own road to recovery, because eating disorders, from what I have come to understand about them, I was a psychology major, and I actually have I forget what the name of the book is properly, but it's a book that diagnoses all of the disorders, the mental illnesses, mood disorders that exist in the world. It's actually one, what is it called? It is, it's not the latest version. I think it's the version just before the most current version. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm aware that there's many aspects to what identifies as having an eating disorder, but I'm hoping those who are suffering with it will one day be able to recover and live comfortably in their recovery, and maybe be able to help someone else. But yeah, that's my take as a foodie who has found an eating disorder recovery coach channel on YouTube, and I really appreciate her content, and anyone else who could use the content, I hope you find her and support her efforts. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Bye.